Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 2021 My Driver Career Mode. Hope you're all having a great day. Today, we start things off with showing off a brand new livery here modded into the game. So I had some comments about why isn't Alpha Tauri at BMW now that Red Bull is. So I fixed that. We have an Alpha Tauri BMW now in the game starting today for the Canadian GP, my home GP. I'm very excited for this one to bring it to you guys now. This mod was made by the way, by El Mustachios, once again, who's made the other mods that I'm using in our My Driver Career Mode as well throughout this season. So they look incredible. Love the job he did with that. And you can check out his race department page where he's got his mods and whatnot, and I'll put that in the description. But coming through into the Canadian GP, like I said, my home race, I'm very excited for this one here in Montreal, coming off of our first non-points finish of the season in Azerbaijan and Baku, which was a little bit disappointing because we were on track for, I think, a 5th place finish it was, coming to the line there, down that front straightaway until we lost it right in front of Sergio Perez. So it was looking like we were going to be facing some potential rain here in the GP. So definitely was keeping that in the back of my head throughout the whole race weekend now as we came through into FP1. So you might notice that the audio in practice 1 and qualifying is a little bit desynced for some reason, but that was fixed in time for the actual GP, so don't be too concerned about that now, as you're only going to deal with it for a couple of moments or so here. But got underway in our first practice session, and we were in the race strategy where I went above the Delta, so it was looking decent, but unfortunately I got stuck behind my teammate Sebastian Vettel for the rest of it, and I couldn't go any better because I was stuck behind him and he refused to get out of the way. So that completely ruined that, and then I decided to just back out of it. I didn't want to be behind him, and then I tried to make a qualifying pace run where I was over a second off of the goal time, and they were predicting that I was going to qualify in dead last. So we ended FP1 in 14th place. It was not looking so good at this time in the episode now. As we came through to the end of FP3, I wasn't even in the top 14 here. So concerns were building, and actually at the end of the third practice session, I went out into time trial and got a completely different setup to use for qualifying here. So we come through into qualifying for the Canadian GP. Last time out, of course, we were with Haas and we didn't have a points finish, but now here we are at our home track with the Aston Martin, and we expect to hopefully be in the points in the end of this race here now, as qualifying so important here in Canada now, as we would get our first lap in the first session underway. And I was hoping we could get a good enough lap to where I only had to make this lap only. I don't have to go out again at the end of the first session. So it was a decent lap. It wasn't great, but it would be good enough. We went P4 just in front of our teammate of Sebastian Vettel, and that would get us through into the next round there with P14, as he would actually make another lap at the end of the session and beat me, but thankfully nobody else is really able to better our lap. So we make it into Q2, where I knew was going to be tough to make it into Q3. We have yet to make it into Q3 in our F1 career with the Aston Martin team, that is. So we made our first lap, and it was decent again, but I had to go out and make a second lap at the end of the session here. George Russell, he was actually inside the top 10 towards the end of my second lap and end of the session, of course. But we had found a couple extra tenths here, and I actually lost a little bit of ground right through the final chicane. You can see it goes down to about a tenth and a half, a little bit over a tenth and a half above our previous lap, and we cross the line. Don't gain any positions, unfortunately, and we would miss out on Q3 by 1 spot. So we qualify P11 for the Canadian GP, and we out-qualify our teammate Sebastian Vettel there for 14th, where he will start as we get ready to go for the Canadian GP in Montreal.
Bonjour! It's time once again to go racing here in Montreal, the second largest French-speaking city in the world, and home since 1978 to the Canadian Grand Prix. We'll be seeing top speeds of around 210 miles an hour here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around 2/3 of the lap taken at full throttle. High-speed chicanes spell potential danger, especially at the infamous Wall of Champions. And watch out for overtaking into the hairpin and the final chicane. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat, Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching for as they go down into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Perez, Lando Norris and Ricciardo, Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, the rookie Ocon, George Russell and Vettel, Giovinazzi, Joe, Nicholas Latifi and Mick Schumacher, Stroll and Callum Islet. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
We're ready to go in Montreal for the Canadian GP. You saw Bottas as well as Verstappen. Their lap times were identical. So Bottas still gets credited with the pole, Verstappen second, as we underfuel the car quite a bit, expecting rain on the way. Not sure exactly how soon the rain is going to be, but it looks like it's probably going to be within the first half of the race that we'll be dealing with it. So it's going to be interesting to see what effect that has here as we would get to the grid. Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, your top three. Perez fourth, and then you got Ricciardo sixth with Lando Norris in P5 in that McLaren duo as we are ready, good to go racing here from Montreal from the 11th position. This start's going to be very important for us to get ourselves cleanly through these first few corners and hopefully inside the top 10 as it's 5 red lights. Bottas, Verstappen, it's lights out and we are underway here from the Canadian GP, and Lewis Hamilton gets a great start. Verstappen a terrible start, and Hamilton up the inside of Bottas into turns one, nearly runs him out of road there as they go side by side through turns 2, and now it's going to be down between the two Mercedes drivers, and now defending champion of Bottas. Hamilton still looking for his 8th title here as he's going to rough up Bottas. A little bit of contact between the two drivers, and Hamilton comes out the leader here at the end of this first sector. So a big start right there for Lewis Hamilton. Now as you see Perez under attack from the McLaren of Lando Norris there, not what he needs to be having, and sure enough he's actually going to have to sacrifice the position right there to Lando Norris. So now Norris up into 4th place, Perez down into 5th. He kind of showed the nose right there, and that actually allowed Ricciardo to catch Perez off guard, make him move up his left hand side, and that really stacked up the field here. But Perez, it looks like he may be able to stay clear. Yes he will. He holds the position there of 5th place over Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren as we were now starting to settle in all single file all the way through this hairpin here. But up front, Lewis Hamilton with an incredible start right there, went from 3rd to 1st in the first and opening few corners of this GP, and we know that rain is coming, so it's absolutely crucial to get as much track position as you can in these first handful of laps, because when it starts raining it is just so much more difficult to pass no matter what track you are at. So I myself looking for any spot I could get, of course, but I knew it was going to be a tough challenge to go up here and pass the Ferrari. I did gain 1 spot on the start, by the way. We got up into 10th place after passing Yuki Tsunoda, but like I said, I knew it was not going to be an easy task to pass the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz or the Alpha Tauri of Pierre Gasly. And sure enough, at the start of lap 3, the rain is already coming down as DRS was enabled. So it was not long at all, a lot earlier than I expected that the rain started falling. So I was just waiting to see that kind of transition point here of that track really starting to dampen. And it was happening pretty quick, because you can see right now it looks like it's getting close to that point already, but we had stayed out for an extra lap because it definitely wasn't quite there yet. Now as I was right on the back of Carlos Sainz, just not close enough to make a move, but then towards the end of lap 5 you can see definitely the track was wet enough, in my opinion, at least looked visibly wet enough to bring it into the pit lane. So I called it. I said, Jeff, we're coming into the pit lane right here, putting on the intermediate tires. Nobody else comes in. We're the only one coming in, so we either made a great call right here or we made a terrible call. We're about to find out now, as every single car is staying up going by as we come in to put on the intermediate tires. So hopefully this is going to actually gain us a little bit of time instead of lose us a little bit of time, but we're going to probably find out within the lap. So Kyle Mila actually in the Alfa Romeo comes in and he's going to put on the intermediate tire. So we weren't the only one. The guy in last place decided he was going to come in as well for that intermediate tire as we get back onto the racing track. Now, we definitely made the right call because everybody starts struggling, including the Mercedes duo of Lewis Hamilton and Bottas. Now, Hamilton loses it through the chicane into Bottas, damages his front wing, and that's going to completely cause chaos because everybody would come into the pit lane the same lap, including the Red Bull duo. Perez actually stuck behind Verstappen, and that allows Verstappen to actually get out in front of Bottas because he was stuck waiting for Perez. So now there's a bit of a switch right there between the leaders and a huge just meltdown in a lap or so for the Mercedes team. And here we were coming through finally now on lap 7, cycling through into about P12, but there was still actually, I believe, a couple of drivers that stayed out an additional lap, if I'm not mistaken. So here we were in P12, and now I realize Bottas is only a few spots in front of us. I was just very curious what in the world had happened. There was Lance Stroll, one of those drivers who had stayed out an extra lap, and he was unbelievably far off the pace, and that got me right to the back gearbox of Pierre Gasly. So now we're up into P11, just kind of waiting for an opportunity to open up here if a slip-up happens from Gasly there in that Alpha Tauri Red Bull or something like that, but it wasn't quite happening now. As we came through, though, to lap 8, everything's cycling through even more, and we were now up into 7th place, putting pressure there on Lando Norris, who had stayed out really far, and I'm surprised Norris was still this far up the grid, staying out an extra few laps on those soft tires. So credit to him. Now as we came through to lap 11, we actually have an issue there for Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who's going to be out of the Canadian GP, our first DNF on the day, as it looks like it's going to be a mechanical failure for him. He pulls off, calls it a day. Very unfortunate for Charles Leclerc. No safety car, virtual safety car comes out. I was kind of hoping it would, because we could get a nice look at the brand new Aston Martin safety car, but not going to happen today. Here in Canada, a bit of a slip up from myself right there, but we would hang on to the car. You can see how much ground I was losing to everybody in front of me, as we were running really well, by the way, in P6, considering where we started in P11. Obviously, we made the right call there to pit a lap earlier with the intermediate tires, and that really helped us out. But now to lap 16, just 20 laps to go in this GP, and now we were under pressure from Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, as he had got, of course, put behind us due to the whole pit disaster that was going on there when everybody was just kind of just scrambling into the pit lane on those dry tires when they're trying to put on the intermediate. So I was holding my own against Perez, and simply because when it's raining, it's so hard for them to get an opportunity to pass, and he would get close to me, and then as we came through that hairpin, every single lap, I would actually be able to open the gap back out and then have enough of a gap to hold him off until the time we got around again to the hairpin, and then just open that gap again. So it was a very repetitive cycle here, where Perez would put on some pressure, we get to the hairpin, I'd relieve that pressure until we got back around there one more time. Now to lap 20, though, for a quick race update. Verstappen, Ricardo, Bottas, your top 3. Gasly doing incredible in the Alpha Tauri BMW there, running in the 4th place. Lando there in P5, and then you got myself in P6, still holding off Sergio Perez. Now, as you see, Carlos Sainz was actually closing in the Ferrari on both myself and Perez. I knew Perez was way faster than me, but I said, you know what, if you don't get an opportunity to pass me, I'm not just going to pull over. So if he gets an opportunity to pass, of course, I would probably let him have it. Now, our teammate, by the way, of Sebastian Vettel there in the 10th position here, looking at points today. Hamilton down in 15th place. The worst kind of conditions possible for him to try and make up a lot of ground, so it's not looking good for him there, as Lance Stroll and Mick Schumacher were rounding out the grid. But at the end of lap 20, we come in to make our second and final pit stop of the GP. Perez actually follows us in, so now it's going to come down to who can get the better pit stop right here. Red Bull is known for being very, very good on their pit stops, but not good enough for Perez here today in Canada as we get out in front of him. So we hold on to the position, and now it's going to be down to, can we hold on for 16 or 15 laps here in the Canadian GP over Perez, who's been putting on a whole lot of pressure here for a good 5, 6, 7 laps at this point. So just trying to hang on to the best of my abilities, but I knew it wasn't going to be an easy task at hand. And now as we came through to lap 23, once again, he's right on my gearbox through that hairpin, but he just can't get through there quick enough, and obviously you just can't really make up enough time down the straightaway in the wet conditions either to make a move on me. So now to lap 24, Sainz up into the mix as well. Now as I lose grip quite a bit right there, though, and that opens the door for Perez to maybe attack on us. Yes, sure enough, there he goes in the Red Bull BMW to my right hand side. I didn't even really try to put up a huge fight to him right there. He had been just stuck behind me for so long, frustrated, heated, of course, and I actually screwed him over in Baku in the last episode when I spun myself out and costed him a bunch of time as well and an extra position. So I said, you know what, you can just have it, go through and finish your race. And I knew he was just going to drive far, far away from me here. So I wasn't concerned about fighting with Perez. And you can see now coming to lap 27, he was well over 2.5 seconds ahead, just about 3 seconds ahead of myself at this point. So now it was about holding off Carlos Sainz there for that 7th spot as he's trying to take over it from us now, as Perez was about 4 seconds ahead now on lap 28. Very surprised with how calm this GP has been. Of course, I'm not complaining too much, but I was expecting a little bit of chaos here and there, but it just didn't quite happen, surprisingly. Now to 6 laps to go, and it's still holding on to that 7th position. Same situation as earlier with Perez, just doing everything I can to hold him off, but now he actually goes up the right-hand side. Carlos Sainz does into the corner. I try to pinch him down a little bit into the entrance of the hairpin. Doesn't quite work out now, as the Ferrari caught me way off guard on that move right there, as we were going to lose 7th place, and I lost too much grip right there. I thought about trying to put the attack back to Carlos going down into the final chicane, but I knew it would be just an idiot move to go side by side into this chicane, so I decided to not force it right there, and hopefully we can set him up for turn 1 to try and fight back, but I lose too much grip right there, and that really hurt us now as we try to get close. But unfortunately, that was pretty much it against Carlos Sainz. He would open up the gap just like Perez was opening up the gap on myself earlier, and now less than 5 laps to go in this GP, and it's all about holding on to that 8th position over George Russell in the Alpine right now, who's 2.5 seconds back as we came through to cross the line with the final 3 laps underway. But still, nonetheless, I mean, we were looking at a potential 6th place finish, but 8th place at the same time is still an incredible effort for this team now as we came through to the final 2 laps of the GP, losing a little bit of grip right there, actually quite a bit now, as we nearly went into the concrete wall on our right hand side. That would have not been a good feeling, but we come through to start the final lap of the Canadian GP, and we actually put up some decent laps here at the end, and we were closing in a little bit even on Carlos Sainz. Not, of course, enough, but we were still doing a nice little pace here in the final couple of laps now, as Max Verstappen, though, ever since that whole pit stop disaster for Mercedes, took the lead, and he hasn't really looked back, and he's looking like he's going to hang on here in the Canadian GP now, as it's just bringing it home. I definitely wasn't pushing whatsoever here on this final lap. I say that, and then you see me actually get into that concrete barrier on my left-hand side. Checked out the damage real quick to make sure we didn't do anything too much to the car, and it looked like we got away pretty lucky with that one here. Now, as Max Verstappen, though, out of the final chicane down the front straightaway, comes through to win the Canadian Grand Prix now, as it's going to be Daniel Ricciardo for McLaren in 2nd, and Valtteri Bottas in 3rd place to round off the podium. A great day for Pierre Gasly there, who's going to get a 4th place finish now, as he's got some lap traffic there with the Haas of potentially, I think that is Schumacher up ahead, but there you see myself just bringing it down this long back straightaway for the final time, draining the ERS at this point. A nice comfortable gap over George Russell, our teammate of Vettel, going to get P10 here, so both Aston Martin cars in the points, which is not a common thing, it really seems like, so far this season, as we come through to cross the line for a 8th place finish in our home GP. I will take it. I was pretty happy and satisfied with that effort, and hopefully next season we can be competing maybe even for a podium if we either upgrade Aston Martin enough or switch teams, as we have some post-race celebrations here from the Canadian GP in Montreal.
They take the checkered flag then here in Canada in what has been another fabulous Grand Prix. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, they clearly have a car that comes alive in the kind of conditions we were dealing with today. It's a very balanced package in the wet, and what that means is that the drivers have confidence to attack. And having that confidence gets you on the power earlier, it lets you brake later, and can put you a long way up the road.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
Max Verstappen, 2 wins now on the season. He has doubled what he did last season. He only won the Mexico GP last season in our My Driver career mode. This time out, he's already won 2 of them in the first, little bit of the season, in the first half of the season, I should say. So there you see the standings. So we sit P10 with a full race of points there at 25, and Aston Martin at 33 total there in the constructors standings now, as Verstappen stretches out that points lead a little bit more. So he's looking very strong, and now Mercedes realize they're behind. It's not Bottas going against Hamilton for the title right now. Now it's Mercedes trying to put the fight to Max Verstappen, similar to real life. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do going into the next one in France. I mean, if we had to predict who to expect to be on top in France, I would think Mercedes, simply due to the long straightaways. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring into the French GP now as you see the standings one final time. As always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time of your day to watch this episode. I really do appreciate it. France actually didn't go our way last season with Haas. We spun out in the first lap and never got a safety car, so we tried to rebound and did the best we could, and we didn't get a great finish out of it. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do this time around. But I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.